Hello everyone, I'm picking up where I left off yesterday looking at the recent Spider-Man retro card wave, and I'm looking at my second favourite in this wave, which is Kaine. For anyone who isn't familiar, Kaine was one of the main antagonists of the Clone Saga as it was in the 1990s. This is a personal favourite era of mine because this is the era I grew up reading Amazing Spider-Man and the various other titles that are on the stands at the time. So I have a lot of love for this character and this era despite its reputation, and I'm delighted to finally have a Kaine figure in my Marvel Legends collection because I never thought that would actually happen. So this is tremendously exciting for me and I can't wait to get into this. So let's start off by taking a look at the packaging. Well, we know what to expect by now. It is the Spidey retro card wave. It doesn't entirely work for Kaine because of course he never appeared in Spider-Man the animated series, but that doesn't seem to stop Hasbro where they introduce all sorts of interesting Spidey characters that are comic book based and not animated series based. But hey, I'm not going to let that bother me because I love this artwork. I think it looks fantastic on display and I couldn't be happier. If we flip it over and look at the reverse, we see this fantastic image of Kaine as we saw on the front of the packaging, and we see the other figures available in this wave, which is pretty fun and very much in keeping with the style and tone of the original Toy Biz years, which is a line that I collected and have a lot of love for. And first impressions upon opening the figure, I have to say I'm really pleased with this. There's a lot of new sculpted elements and some fantastic paint apps on this figure, which is brilliant. If we take a look at this head sculpt, well, we can see that I think this is a new hairpiece. I don't think we've seen this before in any other figures. I could be wrong. We can see obviously this is a brand new face sculpt though. Definitely never had this before. And we actually have those individual scar tissue bits and pieces that are actually sculpted into the mask, which is brilliant. This is not just painted on, and it is very delicately painted there. There's no smudging at all, which looks brilliant. My only criticism here is that sadly there's no paint wash running through the hair. We've seen this on a few recent releases and it's such a misstep. I wish they just run a quick wash through this hair so that it would add that depth and texture and just make it look a bit more realistic rather than looking like a plastic toy, which is, you know, what it is, I suppose. Now, I do really like the sculpted shawl or cape that he has. Generally, I prefer cloth on my action figures if I can, but that wouldn't really work for Kaine. And I do like this stylized pose that they've sculpted it into. I think this works really very well. Again, sadly, no paint apps on this, which is really disappointing. But otherwise, this is nicely sculpted. I think it's quite a dramatic pose that they've got him in, although it does kind of limit your options, I suppose. But it is nicely done. And of course, it is unique to this character, which is really fun as well. When it comes to the main body sculpt, again, I'm really pleased with the approach they've taken here. There's a lot of sculpting gone into this body here to make it unique and specific to Kaine, because all of that scar tissue, all of those veins that we see there are actually sculpted in. They're not just painted in, which is brilliant. Adds that depth and texture to the figure, which I love, and just makes it really stand out a lot more, and it makes it feel more distinct and unique as well, which is really very cool. There's not much in the way of paint apps otherwise in terms of washes and things like that, but there's such a lot of blue paint being used here and pink, which just works really well, and actually it compensates for that lack of wash that's running through the rest of the figure, so it still looks very striking and it works tremendously well. And I also like the addition of the fins as well that have been sculpted into the gauntlets and on the boots there as well. I think this looks really nice, very accurate to what we see on the page, and very nicely and effectively produced. Looking at the articulation then, he does have a ball joint to the top of the neck, but he is hindered both by the hairpiece and by the cape, unfortunately, so he can just about move it side to side. He can't really wobble it left and right, and he can look down pleasingly, but he cannot look up. Now, he does have ball joints in the shoulders, but even better, he actually has that butterfly wing joint there as well, which is fantastic. I love this, and I was not expecting to see this on this particular figure, which is brilliant. He's got the complementary bicep swivel, he's got the double joint at the elbow there as well, and of course he has the standard pin swivel at the wrist, allowing the hand to rotate all the way around and hinge forwards and backwards. Now he's got a straight swivel at the waist, so he can move from side to side, and he's got the standard ab crunch in the middle of the torso there, which will allow him to bend forwards a really good distance and actually bend back a pretty good distance too, so this works really well. He's got ball joints in the hips, the legs will kick out to the side, there's the thigh swivel at the top of the leg there, the legs will kick forwards and they'll just about go back, and then there's a double joint at the knee, allowing that lower leg to kick all the way back there, which is fantastic. Finally, he has the standard ankle pivot, so of course that foot will hinge forwards and backwards, but also rock from side to side. And in terms of accessories, well, he comes with an additional pair of open hands, and that's it. I've got to be honest, that's really disappointing. Now, I know that Kaine doesn't necessarily need to come with an awful lot of accessories, but I think given that it's quite light in this regard, it would have been cool if he come with an additional head, an unmasked head. I think that would be appropriate for the character, and I think it would be an opportunity to show off some fantastic paint apps there, because obviously he's hideously scarred, and that would have been so cool. Sad that that didn't happen here. And before I wrap up for today, I want to do a quick scale comparison and show you how he measures up against the Scarlet Spider, who is his main nemesis from that era, which was really cool. So I'm glad that we've got these two figures together at long last. They look absolutely fantastic together, and we can see that Kaine actually is coming in roughly the same size as Spidey, with maybe an additional half an inch there, maybe from the hairpiece, and that is entirely appropriate. That makes total sense if you know the history of these characters. That works perfectly well. All right then, final thoughts from me. I'm going to give this figure 4 stars. I'm tremendously pleased with it, I have to say. I thought this might be a disappointment, but it's actually surpassed my expectations, which is brilliant. I really love that the detail has been sculpted into this costume when it comes to that scar tissue. I love the way that that's been painted as well. It looks really neat, and it just looks fantastic. I love the plastics they've used and the different colours they've used, because it really makes this figure pop. It looks really eye-catching and it looks brilliant. A long sought-after character from me personally. I think they've executed it really well. Could this have been improved? Yeah, a little bit of a wash through the hair would have made all the difference. Some more accessories, ideally, an alternate unmasked head would have been a really nice touch. But all in all honesty, this is a perfectly serviceable figure. I'm really glad to have it in my collection. I think it's one of the better releases so far this year. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.